Welcome to another edition of Second Acts Podcast. F. Scott Fitzgerald once wrote, "There are no second acts in American lives, but there are on Second Acts Podcast." This is episode 2 of the podcast, our interview featuring Glen Eaton of The Last Dragon. I'm your host, Sean Riley, and we'll get started right after this message. Hi, this is Sean Riley, host of Second Acts Podcast. I'm not just a podcast host, but I'm also the director of the feature film Fighting Belle. Fighting Belle is a romantic comedy best described as Legally Blonde meets Rocky with a dash of Sweet Home Alabama thrown into the mix. When a sassy Southern belle is jilted at the altar by her fighter fiancé, she trains as a boxer to get her revenge. Don't miss what movie reviewer Toxic Fletch describes as a Southern fried romantic comedy with a distinctly different approach to finding love. And the movie critic next door writes, warm Southern charm and ice-cold revenge that somehow works beautifully. Be sure to rent or own Fighting Belle today on Amazon Video. The year was 1985. Back to the Future reigned supreme at the movie theater, grossing over $210 million in the United States. My family couldn't afford premium cable channels like HBO and Cinemax, but every year my brother and I looked forward to a free preview week event that these companies offered to lure new subscribers. I finally remember one such event held by Showtime. The channel's format included a 6 p.m. time slot that was the lead-in for a blockbuster movie at 8 p.m. The blockbuster movie that held the coveted 8 p.m. slot at that time was Commando. So we would sit through the lead-in film in preparation for Arnold Schwarzenegger's magnum opus. The movie chosen as Arnold's opening act was The Last Dragon, a film which I was previously unfamiliar with. For those unfamiliar with the movie, The Last Dragon was produced by Motown record label founder Berry Gordy, about a young man named Leroy Green, otherwise known as Bruce Leroy in the movie, searching for the quote-unquote master to obtain the final level of kung fu mastery known as the glow. Along the way, he must fight a martial arts expert corrupted with power, as well as rescue a beautiful singer from an obsessed movie promoter. Set in New York, The Last Dragon was notable for turning African American and Asian American stereotypes on their heads. Today, the movie has over 10,000 ratings on IMDb.com, a testament to how well the film's comedy and action blend hold up for older and newer audiences alike. And while I cherish classic Schwarzenegger lines like, "Remember when I promised to kill you last? I lied," and "Let off some steam, Bennett," it's The Last Dragon that ultimately captured my heart, and still does to this day. So sit back and enjoy my interview with Glen Eaton, the actor behind the Last Dragon character Johnny U, Bruce Leroy's sidekick, as we discuss Glen's channeling of John Travolta, both on and off the set, a dinner with Berry Gordy that changed his life forever, and we answer the eternal question, just what is Shownuff's favorite fast food restaurant anyway? all on this episode of Second Acts Podcast.
We're joined today on the podcast by Glen Eaton. You may know him as Johnny U from 1985, The Last Dragon. Very excited to have Glen as a guest today. How you doing, Glen?
Very good. Thank you, Sean. I'm very happy to be here.
Great. Glen, this kind of blows my mind a little bit here, but The Last Dragon is about 32 years old, if my math's correct. And that's kind of like if we were in the 80s watching a 1950s movie. That never ceases to blow my mind. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it blows my mind, too. It's like when I was a kid in 1972, the movie Summer of 42 came out. And a friend of mine told me, hey, you hear that movie Summer of 42? I said, yeah. He goes, I was thinking maybe in like 30 years they'll make a movie The Summer of 72. And I just laughed. You know, you just laugh. That's, it's a long way to go. And now it's like there's so many things on, remember the 70s, records and nostalgia. And I'm like, shit, he's right. I mean, you don't realize that it's going to change. And people will look back after a while and go, hey, remember that? And some music and everything changed, so now it's such a nostalgic period. But how time goes, like you were talking about, you don't think about that. But, it's been 30-something years now. And it's strange.
It really doesn't feel that way. I think when I think of watching, a 30-year-old movie from the 80s, I'm thinking of watching, James Dean film Rebel Without a Cause or something like that. But, I watched The Last Dragon again a few nights ago just to prepare for our interview, and it really doesn't feel like it's 30 years old. I mean, the jokes still work. The action is still great. I mean, to me, it still holds up. Is that the kind of reaction that you get today as well?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. It's the only film really I was involved in besides a small low budget film which wasn't released in this country in the theaters. But it's the only film so I don't know if everybody gets that reaction. But when people tell me about The Last Dragon, I'm not too sure. I mean, I trust them, but it's like maybe they say that about every picture has people that say, hey, that was the greatest picture.
Right. I really think, there are those films that truly do show their age and don't age very well. And I like to think that The Last Dragon's not one of them. I really think that it does stand up so well for, probably a lot of different reasons that we'll talk about today. But, and I think that's why, if you look on IMDb, the popularity is still there and the new generations are still finding the film. So, I like to think that it holds its age very well.
Thank you very much. I agree. At the time I was doing it, I was very much into, which I still am, but I was very much into James Dean. And so having a movie, the first movie I did, and then it's going to be shot in New York, which I wanted to visit more than any place, mainly because James Dean was there for a few years, and all the stuff was there, the Iroquois Hotel and Times Square and so forth. So I was in that James Dean mode, and so The Last Dragon to me was like a comedy and a slapstick and all this stuff. So I didn't take it seriously. I just thought I was happy to be in a picture. And but I was not thinking about the picture when I was there. I was thinking about James Dean. This is where he walked, and right over there, And I loved New York. So the architect, everything. It's such a lively place with so much history. And so I loved it, New York. And so the picture, I was very surprised how well it was done when I saw it. I was like, the editing and everything just right, because that if you go too long or too quick on a punchline, it could ruin the joke. And the comedy and the editing, everything was just really well done. And
oh yeah, I thought I detected a note of Tony Manero in your performance. You know, John Travolta from Staying Alive and Saturday Night Fever. Am I wrong on that? Or,
no. It might have just slipped through because boy, John Travolta was big and at 77 or something in 78, and I was really into him. And I remember I have a habit of imitating, and sometimes I'll do it and I won't even know it. And so I was watching Saturday Night Fever, and afterwards I said, "Hey, you want to go get something to eat?" And my friend and I drove to the store. And as we're ready to drive out of the parking lot, three girls walk up to the car, and they were kind of drunk. And they said, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And so I started talking. I said, "Oh, we just got something to eat. Now we're going to go home, you know." And she said, "Oh, you from New York? I've been there a few times." So I was just being John Travolta, you know, like we get some coffee, you know. And I was doing this little bit. So they bought it, and we drove away. My friend laughed and said, "Oh, it's funny, boy. They pretended you were from New York." And I go, "No, I couldn't help it." But so yeah, he was the New York accent that I guess at that time would have came in my mind. But you know, the real guy was really my best friend at the time. This guy named Brian Wisenhunt, and he was a lot like Johnny. He's a blonde hair, tall guy, very athletic and very energetic. And I'm telling you, everywhere I hung out with him for a couple of years, and everybody we'd meet, you'd think they were a friend of his because he's nice to everybody. You know, one of those guys, if he's going to ask, "Excuse me, do you have the time?" It's not going to be, "Excuse me, I hate to bother you, but do you have the time?" "Yeah, it's so-and-so. Thank you so much." I mean, he's like always so kind. And
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you know, from perusing your Facebook, actually that may be a perfect time to bring this quote up that you had along with the photograph from The Last Dragon. It says, "The first scene I shot was in the dojo. It had been in New York for a few months. I had been in New York for a few months, and I had forgotten how I performed in the audition. I was not prepared, so they weren't happy with my performance. Everyone was giving me advice, which added to my confusion, which made me panic. If I didn't get this first scene right, I was going straight back to L.A." And this is referencing your friend Brian, right?
Yes. Yeah, that was true.
Can you give some context to that quote?
Well, my character was not written in the original script. It's a character that Barry Gordy, I happened to have dinner with Barry Gordy one night with my sister, and I was telling him about the times when I almost got into fights with guys, and I pretended I knew martial arts, and I'd scare them, and they wouldn't fight, so that protected me. And I told him a few stories, and he was cracking up. And so he said, "We got to write that character into the film." I was hoping I can play the Chinese guys who act black or African American, and because I hadn't done a film yet, and I was very nervous and hoping that I could get that at least. Now he wants us to write this character together. I just pitched it. It ain't gonna happen. And I'm going to sit here going, at least I could have gotten the damn other guys, right? But now I got nothing. So I was a little bit like, shit. And and so, but he came up with the idea. He called me and came up with the idea, and I was like, all right. He's very good when it comes to that creative stuff. And so he wrote it in. And so when I went to the writer, you know, naturally you write something and you don't write a person in there. All of a sudden, here comes this other character. So I'm sure he was a little bit, you know, not too happy about that. And I don't blame him. But so on that first day where I shot, it was very important. I didn't know this till later. My sister told me that, they were ready to, if you didn't get this right, they were going to pack your bags and out.
That's a lot of pressure. Fortunately, you didn't know that at the time.
No, I didn't, but I felt it. I felt it. I felt like, oh, fuck, you know. Here I am, and they're going, try to feel it more. Try this, and I'm just going, oh my God, because it made me more confused. And you can't do it at the drop of a hat. You'd have to take that information home and work on it. So I was like, fuck, what do I do? And so all I did was I remembered why I did the audition 6 months before. Well, why I got it. I said, just imitate your friend. Oh, yeah, okay, hopefully, right? And all it was is pump up the energy. Put up the energy. Because I guess I was doing it.
Huh?
Yeah, I was doing it kind of normal. You know, and so I thought, yeah, okay, I hope this works. And so I just put Leroy, is he not always teaching us? And I just put up the energy. Afterwards, they go, okay, that was good. I was like, oh, thank God.
So I guess that just kind of set the tone for the rest of the shoot.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. From that point on, it was no problem. They would call me over for rewrites to get down a scene. The scene where I get locked in the closet was written the night before we shot it. And so Barry called me over to the hotel to go over the lines. And the producer was there, people were there, and so he showed me the lines, basically what they wanted, and they go, okay, I got it. I just remember, put energy. So I just put energy in it, and they said, okay, that's good. And I just left. I was able to enjoy the rest of my evening. So that made it smooth sailing. I'd say it's a good lesson, I think, that when you do something that works,
right.
Right. Whatever it is, to try to remember. Try to remember your mental state, what you thought of, so forth. Because you can recreate that. But if you don't know, it's like you could be doing your best 3 different ways and still doesn't work, and they think you're not a good actor. But it's just because that one way would have got it if you would have put it in your mind. So it's a good lesson about that, and not to take things so serious. You know, it's like if I go, okay, just more energy, or just be laid back and be more nicer. You're being a little cold. Okay, let me try that. Got it. I'll remember that. You know, so you just remember that kind of mood that character basically is. But
gotcha.
That saved me.
Yeah. And actually, there were a few of you first timers on the set during this time, right? Ty Mock was the first timer as well. Was there a concerted effort to hire fresh faces and kind of distinctly non-Hollywood types for this particular production?
No, I don't think so. Well, in a way, probably they wanted. I would think. I'm just taking this from my own perception on it. I would think they wanted an unknown for the lead because it was a kind of character that they want you to believe that this guy's, you know, an Afro-American who actually believes he's Bruce Lee or Chinese or whatever, and never been played before like this. And so if you get somebody like Eddie Murphy or somebody that's well known, you'd just be thinking, that's Eddie Murphy's great, you know, and here he is. But and it worked because a lot of people would actually, that Leroy was a big influence in my life and inspired me, and so that actually made them believe more, I think, that this guy was like that. And so I think that's what they were going for, at least for the lead character.
Yeah, it was a really incredible performance by Ty Mack and yourself as well.
Thank you.
So I think the choice was dead on, and I appreciate that. I think as the more I watch the film. Speaking on that, how's it like to work with Michael Schultz? I mean, if you look at this guy's resume, I mean, he's had a hand in everything: Cooley High, Bustin' Loose, Crush Groove, Fat Beach, every TV show that seems like has ever aired.
He did Car Wash too.
Yeah, I mean, the resume is endless. You know, it's pretty intimidating. You know, your first film to step on the set and be directed by someone like that, or what was he like? As a director.
Well, I didn't. He's a very calm person, very calm-centered, seems, and I didn't really hang out or talk with him much at all. But I mostly dealt with Barry. And so I think it was definitely, not think, it definitely was, by me being able to be close with Barry at that time, I was able to observe him, and I didn't know who he was until my sister told me. And so I was observing him, trying to see why is this guy so successful, you know? And I would watch him. And first of all, he doesn't seem to have any fear. I would have fear with authority or opportunities, or what if I mess up? You know, these things come up. No fear of this guy. and people who I admired would walk up to him carefully and shake his hand. Hello, Mr. Gordy, nice to meet you. I was like, wow, this guy's got quite a bit of status in Hollywood. And so that, watching him, and it gave me confidence that, well, if this guy believes in me, right? Well, then, yeah, I mean, I'm set. You know, I mean, anybody else would be like, it doesn't bother me, as long as he believes. And so he's the only person I had that would give me the right advice, would give me confidence, and so forth. And he was the top of the bill, so I was lucky, very fortunate to have his help and advice.
Sure. And as a first-time actor on the set, what kind of direction are you?
Well, I've first of all, it's two things that I find should be the most important that I like is first of all the friendliness I find on a lot of sets that I've worked on and things that I've done, the kindness that that they show each other, the enthusiasm. I'm very impressed by that. I guess because people are so very happy to be there as opposed to another job. And so I really like that kind of feeling of kindness, and everybody's doing at their best, you know. And so that I love, and that's been everything I've been on. A lot of student films, short films, these kind of things. And the second, which is just as important, both go together, is the kind of creative focus. When you work with a director that has a creative focus, a vision, and you may not understand a lot of what, because they're so ahead and knowing what they're trying to get across. But it's like you trust them and you go, okay, let's try that out. And you go, hey, wait a minute. I see. Yeah, it works. And the vision of the scene, the kind of thing, which I really haven't worked with these greats, you know. There's been so many, Kubrick, you name it. But just to imagine how you're working, and they go, okay, try it like this, and you don't feel it. But they got the better seat in the house. They can see, and you trust them, and you do it. And then when you watch the rushes, you're like, all right. And you learn, I'll do that from now on, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really wonderful to have that, the visionaries, you know, so those two things I find the most stimulating, because really those are the two things that when you do a film, you're hanging out together for long periods of time. So to be able to have that enthusiasm and lightness, boy, that must feel good. And then, of course, you're there for the product which is the film. So you do your best, you carve your performance, you add on, you take off, you work on it. But it's a team effort where everybody's working on what they have to do, all for the same thing, one picture. And so that's, I think that's the magicalness. Besides, it's a lot of money people can make. You can make that in other things. But I think it's really, like Betty Davis said, not the red carpet, not the money. but you got to love the craft
Mm-hmm.
and doing the craft. The rest is icing with the cake. But if you're like, oh, how would I play with this character? Let's see. Okay, now he would walk like this because of this happened to him, or he would react this way. So those I find stimulating and fun to do.
Yes. One of my favorite lines in the film of yours, among many that are spoken by other actors in the film, was when you called Julius Carey, the show enough character, a string bean, Rick James looking sucker. Was that improv, or was there any improving going on the set? Because some of the lines are just so, just so unique. You almost think that it was just, arrived at off the cuff.
Yeah, that did come up. Barry Gordy thought of it on the set, and he came up. We did the scene. We were going to shoot the scene. Everybody's getting ready, and he came up to me, and he said on that line, "Say this," and I go, "Okay." But I was like, "Oh shit," I'm not one to have that much gut. And when it comes to that, then the director's gonna be watching. But again, it's Barry Gordy telling me this. If it was anybody else, I'd say, no thanks. You say it. But it was Barry, so I had that confidence that as long as I make him laugh, I'll be okay. So I was thinking about making him laugh, right? So I did the line because what he wanted the actor not to know the line so they can get a reaction. And I think they got it. And so I just threw that line in and cut, and I forgot what happened. I'm just so happy I got through it. And I think they were like laughing or saying, whatever. They knew Barry came up with a line. Also, again, I'd be having to pack and get, right? So, so he came up with that, I think, on the spot. And that scene where I choke and then they throw me down, the same scene, but the end of it, and they beast, let him go, and they throw me down next to Time Out. And that scene, Barry came up to me and he said, as they're getting ready to shoot it, he goes, run around the set for a few times. That way, when they go action and he chokes you, you already be tired and you won't have to act. I go, oh, that's a good one. So I ran around the set. And then, ready? And I get my position, action, and I did it. And when he threw me down to the ground, I almost had a blackout.
Oh, wow.
Halfway. Yeah, so they're rolling under. I hit the ground, and all of a sudden the blackout starts coming in, but not enough to make me faint. I knew where I was, so I held my strength, knowing that it's looking good, because I'm almost blacked out, so it must be looking good. So don't fuck it up. So I just kept my strength to just pretend I'm all right. I'm breathing like that, and it started coming back. And he said his line. I just went, huh? And that was the end of it. And so I was like, oh, right. So yeah, I almost blacked out, but luckily I didn't, because it was fun. It's fun to have the cameras rolling and you forget where you're at for a moment, and you come back going, oh shit, that's right. We're doing the stage.
All for the craft, right?
Yes. It's for me the most amazing thing about I'll say the profession of acting, because like Marlon Brando said, we're all acting, we're all actors, and that's true. We're all acting in life, but it doesn't mean it's not real, But our performance, is what people see, and but the best thing about the craft I like, or about acting, is that it's such a, it's like when you're kids, what do you like to do more than anything? We like to pretend. We like to play. That's the best thing in the world. And kids immediately get into it. And with adults, only an acting profession. You can have a 70-year-old distinguished actor who's been around for years. Everybody says, wow, he's great, autograph. when he's working and action, he goes from here, okay, you ready? Oh, I'm ready. Action. To, listen, you got to understand the thing, he wants to kill you. You got to get out of this place. Cut. Okay. Immediately they'll get into whatever mood it is. They're just pretending. And here you are, this older distinguished gentleman or this lady or whatever. That's the only profession where adults that probably would never do that in life. You say, okay, go and pretend that this happened. You're going to scream, and then you're going to run and yell at that guy. Adults would go, come on. Give me a reason. But actors, okay, you got it. If I stand here, is that good? Is that in camera range? Yes, that's it. That's all they care about. So it's just like, fuck, what a magical profession in that sense.
Absolutely. I want to ask a few more Last Dragon questions, and I'd like to sort of shift gears a little bit and move to different parts of your life. So were you all, you mentioned that you took a fall for the movie. Were you all doing quite a few of your stunts, or what was that like with the choreography and whatnot on the movie?
Well, for me, yeah, I was doing my own stuff. It wasn't that dangerous at all, not compared to Tom Cruise. Wasn't dangerous.
Not in the least.
Can you imagine that? If I go on the set, if it's like Tom Cruise, oh, you're doing great, good. Okay, we'll just get a run through. Terrific. Okay, when that plane, that Pan Am jet is going, you're going to run up to it, grab onto it. Now it's going to take off about 50 feet above the ground, and we're going to. Okay, I'll be gone.
The crazy thing is, I think he actually would probably attempt to do it. But
he would. He would. I admire that. I think he's got. If he wasn't an actor, he'd be Evel Knievel, because that guy's unbelievable when it comes to death daring stunts just for a film. It's like
right.
You got to take your hat off to him for his guts. Just that freedom. The freedom to, hey, if I want to do this thing, you might die, though. Well, I got a grip on it, right? You can die by walking out of your house and something happens. So let me just give it a try. And he goes over it. It's not like he's just crazy. He goes over it where he can do it. I think I can do this, no problem. But, anything can happen. And here comes the trucks. Here comes the plane. Damn. So yeah, he's a thrill seeker, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the soundtrack for a moment. A number of great songs on the soundtrack. I pulled it up the other day. And I was actually kind of surprised. I didn't realize that Rhythm of the Night by DeBarge was actually, I guess, made its debut on that soundtrack, it seems like.
Yeah, it did.
So, we've got Dwight David, Vanity, Alfie, Charlene, Willie Hutch, DeBarge, Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, Rockwell. What's probably your favorite track on the soundtrack, do you think?
Oh, definitely Rhythm of the Night.
Yes, I'd have to agree on that.
Oh, you like it too? All right. It just has a catchy upliftingness to it, and the way he sung it, the bars, and I like the video too. They're dancing in the street.
We were talking about that kind of 50s influence on the 80s, and you can really see that in that video. There's, the girls are wearing the poodle skirts, and they're at I think a diner, a drive-in diner sort of thing.
I was just going to say that, like in the 80s, like the 50s, unlike today, where, and of course that can change any time, where people, kids, adults, teenagers, they were out there more. They were, you had your diners, you had your clubs, you had your dance places, you had your kids would go to the arcade. Or, you had all these things where people can meet other people. And the society gets a sense of unity. And now everything's on the internet, and so that's fantastic, but it's a stage now where you look back at the 80s and it's like the 50s. It's like, remember when people used to be going out all the time and you'd bump into a friend at the record store or whatever. And it just seemed much more exciting like that. But when it was happening, No, I was just thinking about, God, look at the 50s. That must have been something, you know? So it's always looking back, but it was the 80s when I can see so much enjoyable, fun, creative things that were happening. That life did seem, for a lot of people, myself included, life did seem a lot better, a lot safer, and
Agreed.
compared to what it is now.
Now, one last Dragon question. You show 28 minutes into the movie, and you're featured in about 7 scenes throughout. It seems like you really make the most of your screen time because you are acting opposite of Vanity, Ty Mock, Ernie Reeves Jr., which, by the way, I had no idea that's actually supposed to be your younger brother on the movie. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
I had no idea of that until I saw that you posted something about an old picture and made that comment. Anyway, Julius Carey and Faith Prince, what was it like? Do you have any memories of working with these people?
Julius Carey was from. I sat down with him a few times. He's a down-to-earth kind of my guy, not like showing off at all. Very down-to-earth, professional actor. And he was one day after he was training a lot with the fight choreograph guy, and they were doing the sticks, and he got hit on the elbows a lot that day. So he's sitting there, he's exhausted. I said, "Hey, Julius, how you doing, man?" He goes something like, "Man, I'm all bruised up and beat." I go, "Really? Why?" He goes, "They've been doing the damn screamers all day." He goes, "I'm not a martial artist. I'm an actor." I go, "I know. They're a bit hard on that." And he goes, "No shit." He goes, "What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to go to Burger King, man." And grab something to eat. But that's how he was. He was just no-nonsense guy, and a real professional, because going from here, right here, and he's a gentleman, to that showing of character night and day, and he does it at a drop of a hat. And I must say that I saw the film a few months ago, and I was cracking up because Julius Carey is just, for me, the funniest thing in the picture. His anger, because we all feel that. And it's not just a funny character or funny line. And now that more life gets on you, and I'm older now, and I can understand the anger more that people would feel. And so, so when I watched his performance, I was just cracking up, because this guy's always mad. Always mad. You know, always. And if there's some, he's like all of our hostility rolled into one. And so he played it so over the top that as time goes on, I think, God, any less than that wouldn't have worked as good. Just playing it, I can't hear you, you know, he plays like he wants to kill you. And so it's just, I was cracking up because appreciating his performance much more even now than I did then.
Yeah, he's a pretty intimidating figure in the movie for sure. He's an excellent antagonist for Bruce Leroy. Speaking of, how about Ty Mock? Maybe it's because of the whole one name thing, but there seems to be kind of a shroud of mystery around him. What kind of guy is he?
Well, Ty Mock, I've hung out with him a few times, and he's a very determined man. He's very positive. He a lot of drive. He has a lot of drive but I don't know him that well enough to say, well, Ty Mock's like this. I don't. And so, and when I'm around him, he, you know, it's just what I know from when I see him. When I'm with him, and so just drive, a lot of determination, and that's about all I can say though, because I really haven't been hanging out with him that long to give you a real good answer. 1989,
you were, I guess you move forward, what we call a leading role in Train to Kill.
Yes.
You've got pretty prominent billing in the film. As a matter of fact, you actually received second title billing, and that's over some pretty prominent actors like Chuck Connors, Henry Silva, Ron Superfly O'Neill. Tell us a little bit about that movie. What made you choose that project next? And your experiences on that movie.
Well, I'll say this: if I can think of an interesting story for that, I will say that I was very naive, kind of like Stallone when he wrote Rocky. I didn't know how difficult it was. Barry had helped me out, and I just always had faith. And so I wasn't surprised. I was happy, but I was just like, yeah, that's the way it is. So I always believed I'll make it type of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I was at my house in Hollywood, and I told my girlfriend that she could leave the house for about 3 days and stay at her mother's, see if I can write a script. And I never wrote a script before. I just looked at one, and I said, I'll try it out. And so for 3 nights, I stayed up and wrote the script. And then when I read it to her, her and her brother couldn't understand it and thought it was awful. Mm-hmm. Awful. And I was like, well, they just don't get it, So anyways, that day, I get a phone call from a producer who I knew a year before, because he called me because he saw Last Dragon. He was thinking of doing a movie. So we met, mm-hmm. but he didn't call me until a year later. He said, Glenn, because I just wanted you to know that I'm going to the money people right now to try to sell them an idea. I go, great. He goes, but I don't have a script. So that's what I just wrote a script. He goes, you did? I go, yeah. He goes, what's it about? Just tell me. He goes, they're not going to read it. They're just going to, it's 100 pages. I go, 110. Fantastic. So I told him what it's about, basically. Great, I'll just tell him that. So he went through the script, puts it on the table, and he says, well, this movie is about blah, 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 blah. They liked it, and then he called me up after. He goes, I sold it. Wow. They threw my script away. He got a script writer to write the movie, and he says, I'll have you as the lead, or one of the lead brothers in the picture. I go, fantastic. So, again, there's that thing like Stallone had when you don't have no resistance, no doubts, because I didn't mm-hmm. experience what it's like. I thought, oh, yeah, even when my script sucked, the universe found a way to make it work. And that is, as I told you. So, God, I mean, it's life is, it's all how you perceive things, how things come out, really.
After 89, there's kind of a disappear. I don't know what you call it, disappearing from the scene until 2010 or 11. What's going on during this time span in your life?
Well, I was raising a son for a while, and then the mother kicked me out of the house. Oh. And because we were arguing all the time, and she had enough. So I left, but the main thing, and I ended up working 9-to-5 jobs type of thing. And but what I would go on auditions, but I wasn't getting any of them. Mm-hmm. And I thought I had gone on about 50 auditions, and I just landed one, and they never shot it. They decided not to shoot it. But so I said, you know what? I got to learn my craft. Because when they say action, I look in my well and it's empty. There's nothing there. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to feel, right? So I was like, mm-hmm. I got to learn this. I got to find myself, like Bruce Lee was talking about. Through all that training, you can kick anybody. You know what? He's still going. The most hardest thing is to be yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's saying to all of us. And I was like, damn straight. As an actor, you got to be yourself. So I left the scene and raised a son, and then when they kicked me out, I was going, you might say, time of going in your cave, mm-hmm. of finding out who you are. I'd always hung out with people. I've always lived with people, family to girlfriends, and now it's just like I was alone, completely alone. And after a while, I loved it because my mood, I knew my mood would not be changed by anybody upset in the house, right? Because nobody's here. It was just a matter of me. So I ended up finding out, I like myself and so forth. And
I would imagine, taking that time to kind of plug back into, the world a little bit gives you that kind of life feel that you can, that can inform your performances and yourself as an actor, those real life encounters, the real jobs, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Nothing like experience.
Gives you something to, to talk about and to, gives you something to say as an artist, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's, excuse me, I found that it gave me time to think about other people, put myself in other people's shoes. And through the experience, and I continue with it, is you realize we're all the same, yet outwardly different. We express different, look a little different, have different tastes, interests. We're an individual. But on the universal truth, the real essence of each one of us, it's like, for example, for you, you want the best for yourself. You want the best for your family. How you think and go about it may be different than me, but I'm sure nobody says, no, I want the worst for my family. Everybody wants the world to be at peace. Everybody would like that. But a lot of people say, although it's probably never going to happen, but they still would like it. So I found that out, and I was so shocked because my whole life I was thinking I would get upset because I didn't think they were all happy around me, but I was feeling frustrated and they don't understand, and so I brought downness in the room. And I'd leave thinking that, they need a little living up, growing up to do. That's a part of life. And being honest with your negative feelings, right? Well, as time went on, I realized that they did have those feelings. But they just knew they were more mature than me. They knew not to throw that out and ruin the memories, ruin life, ruin the moment, And then, realizing that, I just took me into a whole new world, perceiving the world in that way, where everybody's like me, and I'm like everybody. And so you see a bad guy who's really mean and this and that. He's a nice guy. He just was beaten over the head a lot, emotionally, physically, and he looks tough. But when you talk to this guy a lot, it's like, he's tearing up because he hurt his girlfriend's feelings, or his mother was dying. Now they found out she's going to be all right. I mean, just like anybody else. So I was like, wow, that's so true. So that helped me to realize in my acting, if there's ever something like a fat joke on somebody, or if somebody's got acne scars, to make a joke about that. I'd never do that. Because it ain't funny to them. It hurts their feelings. I wouldn't want somebody to hear that about me. So I think that, even before art, is if I had to sacrifice a big joke, it could be funny, but this person's feelings will be hurt. I would throw the joke away and I'd try to get a better one, or another one. So that's the only thing I would sacrifice, life at stake, or cut down any kind of person, group of people, whatever. I said, no, I want people to feel that, anybody to feel that when they see my work, type of feeling.
Yeah, there almost seems to be a Zen Buddhist kind of feel to your words, and then even carries over to your Facebook page. You seem to be a very positive person, and you cite people like Tony Robbins, and you seem very approachable to strangers and even old classmates and things like that. Was that something that you discovered during your time, I guess, as you said, in your cave, or has that always sort of been your personality? Is that something new for you that you are, continuing to develop?
Well, thank you for asking. I've always been one to open, always been open. Even with a stranger, I'll try to get myself up. The enthusiasm of talking about something or listening to them or whatever, to make this moment as best I can. Otherwise, life would be a long string of dullness, perhaps. So then I got to get myself up, you know, and so people would excite me. They talk about things and they make me laugh, and I think this is great. So I've always had that, but when I did go into isolation, yes, you're right about that. I watched Kennedy, John F. Kennedy documentaries. There was a lot at that time on the Disney Channel. And I was watching these, and I would tape them and watch them every day. Because John F. Kennedy, diving into so much of watching him, he was the first person, or the only person, really, that showed me that he was a dynamic person, charming, everything. And but he was for goodness. He was for righteousness. He was for kindness. He would be kind to people. He'd shake their hands. He smiled a lot. He would listen to people. He would come back very one-on-one. I mean, he was just approachable. This and that. I said, everybody else I love, Marlon Brando, James Dean, you know, Bruce Lee. They're not very democratic like that. Bruce Lee gets up there and he talks, and it's his way. He's great. But Kennedy, I thought to be kind like that and everything would be boring. Kennedy was the first person to show me that you can be kind, you can be nice to people, you can be conventional in many aspects of saying good morning, nice to see you, and still feel that enthusiasm for life, the same things that Bruce Lee felt, and so forth. So I watched a lot, and yeah, I think it was John F. Kennedy, watching and listening to him, that instilled in me something that Bruce Lee and James Dean and them couldn't instill. A certain part was missing, and that is the part that to be kind to others and to be diplomatic, to try to listen to both views, to try to do that. And I found out that that's something I always wanted to do anyway. But I didn't have any figure, any person that was doing it that impressed me. He was shot before I grew up. So I can see what they mean by the loss of Kennedy, that even though he's dead, we have, thank God, film, and we can see how he was in life. And so he was kind of like, he was the president for me, because watching him on film, I don't care if it was 30 whatever years ago, is that he never gets old. His quality is universal. It's timeless. And when he talks about what he talks about, his ideas are timeless. He talks about faith and hope. He says it in a way that I'm like, damn, if they said that way today, people would just love it. And so it was John F. Kennedy who's been my biggest influence in the desire to get out there and meet people, work with people, and not afraid, but enthusiastic. To live your life fullest. Do what you want to do. And because when you go, that's the end of it. You don't know when, you don't know how, but as long as you're living every moment and you're living life as you want, being who you want to be, whenever that time happens, you're going to leave your body and you're going to have no regrets. You're going to go, well, I did it to the fullest. You know what I mean? I was myself. So there's no regrets. But when you hold back to the person who's walking by you and you want to say, hey, good morning. Hold back. Somebody says hi and you're just like, hey, because you're not feeling good.
In 2011, you surfaced again with the short film called Duplicate, which you wrote and acted in. Why the decision to return to the movie industry after so long with this particular project?
Well, because I feel that I'm ready. I haven't felt ready in 20-something years. And I feel I'm ready, and I got my craft down. You're always learning. You're always learning. But there comes a point, like when you have to say, you know what, I've practiced enough, I got it down enough. If I want to wait till I feel I'm at my best, then I'll wait forever. I'll never get out there. But it's good enough to where, okay, I got a grip of myself. I know who I am, and I can act a little better than I could, and I got the craft out of it. And so now, let's do it. And whatever I need to learn, I'll learn along the way. Learn as you go. So I think that's why I came out. It's been a few years, and so I've fallen on my face many times now, and so much that I'm used to it. That when I get something, I'm like, really? I was ready to fall, you know, and so it's no problem. That took away my fear of losing. When you lose enough, you go, oh shit, no problem. And I'm not afraid to try. And so it's been an experience, and I'm just now learning the social media thing, which my girlfriend has kept telling me, you know, learn it. There's a whole world out there, man. Absolutely, you know. I'm still baffled about this TV thing, you know what I mean? How does that work?
I'm still actually working on Twitter myself. I haven't quite found the functionality of it for my particular situation, but it seems to be a pretty useful tool for a lot of people out there. And so once I figure out the ins and outs of it, I think I'll probably try to use that a little bit more. But I'm right there with you.
All right, I'm not alone. Yeah, so I'm just starting to realize that. And Gary V, I pull him up and I watch him. He's inspiring for they all have their unique qualities, all these light bearers that are helping us out. He has a quality that says, you know, with his down-to-earth language, he just basically encourages people, I know he did me, to, how long are you going to wait, basically? Do it. Get it out there. Doesn't matter if it's not as great as you thought, or if you don't get any response. Be busy putting the next thing out, working on your next thing. It's about content. So he was like showing me that, you know what, just be persistent, and don't just talk it or think it or even write it down or create it and put it on the shelf. Man, you got social media. You don't need a movie company to sign you up, and then you can get out there and do it.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm like, wow, son of a gun, it's been all under my nose. I didn't even know about it. I wasn't aware of it. And so now I'm just starting to put out things. I got my thing, it's Glen Eaton. I'm starting to do comedy stuff, skits, and I'm putting them out there. I got these wonderful friends and actors who are joining in. And I'm doing other things, songs and stuff, so starting to...
Yeah, I noticed that. You've got a couple of songs on your Facebook. Is that a long, dormant passion of yours, music, or is that sort of a new discovery within yourself?
No, I've always had that, too. Long before the phrase actor-singer. If you're an actor, then you must be a singer. Long before that came out, I was just playing and singing as well. I love acting more, and I would just do that a little bit, just playing and singing. But now with this garage band, and now you can put it out.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, I'm like, you know, why not?
I got the cats in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man on the moon. I'm gonna be myself like nobody else, and it feels so good to know that you're doing it too.
definitely has a sound to it. I'm not a child of the 60s or 70s by any means, but to me, I kind of feel a Simon and Garfunkel or a John Lennon, Beatles kind of feel to the music. Am I in the ballpark, or is that way?
Oh yeah, you're in the ballpark. You're right in the dugout. It's John Lennon, yeah, the Beatles, the whole songs of those eras. I would have to get the inspiration came from a song in the 71 that goes in, looking through the dimples of the day, every highway that keeps slip away. It was a pretty popular hit in the 70s. That's very much like Pages, but I didn't think about it when I wrote it. But it is very similar. But I got another song I'll be putting out tonight. So I'll just be putting these things out bit by bit and just trying to develop a momentum so I can get used to it.
This may be a good note to end the interview on. I want to read a quote that you wrote on Facebook regarding Pages and what your thinking was when you were writing the song and what it means for you. And you wrote very eloquently, reflecting and understanding what my family and friends were going through and realizing how little I understood. Although we're all different, we experience the same feelings inside. Just want to share this song with you as I look back at the pages of my memories, but ready to write the new chapters.
There you go.
That's well said.
Thank you.
Where can people find out more about you on social media?
Well, they can pull up It's Glen Eaton, and you'll see my stuff, or you can just pull up Glen Eaton on YouTube and see some of the stuff I've done there.
And since you're becoming a not so much a novice anymore to social media, you're probably, I'm guessing, to be found on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all that good stuff as well, right?
Yes, definitely. I'm a little slow, but I'm starting to pick up. My girlfriend's helped me out, and so I should be getting things rolling more and more.
Well, Glenn, it's been a pleasure having you on, and I'll tell you that I tried my best to move The Last Dragon from a 6.9 to a 7.0 on IMDb, but my lowly vote did not sway the numbers, the math, unfortunately. So I encourage everyone to get on IMDb and give The Last Dragon 10 stars, to push it over into the 7.0 range, because you just can't have a film sitting at a 6.9 range. You're awesome to have on. A blast. The Last Dragon, one of my favorite films of all time. One of my favorite performances by Glen Eaton in the movie. We thank you for being so generous with your time and coming on the show today, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you for having me, and the best of luck to you as well. And if you help those Blues teams, then I'll be calling you and giving you an interview.
I love it.
You remember me, Sean, don't you? I forget the name, you know? That's what it does.
That'll do it for yet another edition of the podcast. I'd like to thank our guest once again, actor Glen Eaton of The Last Dragon, as well as you, the audience, for tuning in yet again. Join us next time on the podcast when we have a discussion with cult director of Bloodsucking Freaks, Joel M. Reed. Very interesting conversation and a very interesting person you won't want to miss. I'm Sean Riley, and this has been Second X Podcast. Music by Mikey Moratini. And don't forget to support us. Donations can be made through PayPal at integralpix@hotmail.com. That's INTEGRALPIX. You can also leave us a review and rating on iTunes. Also check us out and share us on Facebook at facebook.com/secondactspodcast. Leave us some listener feedback, as well as any thoughts about our upcoming guest, Joel M. Reed. We'll also feature podcasts and notes and various media items to the website. Also, you can support us by renting or purchasing Fighting Bell on Amazon Video. Thanks again, and see you next time.